Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Transportation and Logistics Podcast, powered by Atlanta Dispatch and Humble Bee Enterprises. I am very excited to be here with a special guest. We have Miss Danni Kornfeld, who is the Senior Vice President of Carrier Sales for Edge Logistics. And before we begin, the Dispatcher's Guide to the Galaxy is available now as an ebook and physical book, and you can acquire your copy online from Barnes and Nobles or the Amazon and anywhere you normally get your ebook. So definitely check out that. Also, I recently checked out Pastor Mike Todd's Cuffin Season sermon. It's a series that's on YouTube now, and for those of you who have not heard of Cuffin Season, it typically refers to the time of year when it gets a little chilly outside and a person's tendency to want to be comforted by things that are normally below the standards just because of its convenience. And the comfort can come from a person, food, or anything that we know is below our standard. But the particular sermon that I listened to was called Cuffed to Constant, which broke down some people's needs to always be doing something productive. This is to get some type of internal, but most times external validation of worthiness. And the crazy thing is, after taking inventory of my own situation, I realized I fell into that category. You know, just as recently as this past winter, I was getting up at 4 a.m. every morning. I was working to scale my dispatch company. I was trying to get two other LLCs off the ground. I was writing a book. I was growing my podcast reach. I was pouring hours and hours of love and value into this community right here, just all within, the hopes of being able to bring value and, help people succeed in their endeavors and all that kind of good stuff. On top of that, the largest responsibility was I had just become a brand new father, brand new baby boy. So, it was easy for me to wake up at 4 a.m. and go to 10 p.m. Just working straight. And I'm saying all this to say that I had a reality check. My wife let me know, you know, you got a baby boy, you can't do that no more. In fact, actually he needs to be to sleep by 8 p.m. every day, and I need you to do it. And that kind of, it was so normal for me to be working that I even fought against that at first. But eventually I took hold to it, and it's truly been a blessing. I say all this to say we recently had a holiday, and I chilled so hard on this holiday. It's the first time I got a chance to really feel as though I was doing the chilling on a holiday, and it felt so great. And I just encourage people to take your rest where you can. Really, really don't overdo it. Don't push yourself. Because health is number one. So I mean, I just encourage you to take your rest. And Danny, I appreciate you for listening to that long intro, that very long intro. And I mean, I guess I just want to start by even asking you: have you ever been in a cycle where you felt like it was nonstop? That you had to continuously, complete task after task, and if so, like, how did you really, get out of that? How did you overcome that type of existence?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I know burnout all too well, and I think a lot of it came from being in college and then transitioning into a really demanding career initially when I started, and you push yourself to be successful and to keep kind of breaking these status quos, and you forget to self care. So I know that very well. And I think, some support from family and friends as reminders to take breaks was really important and to push myself to do that. And then transitioning out of that career or out of that specific job and into a new path allowed me some time to really, prioritize that.
Oh yeah, I love it. Definitely self care, man. My self care nowadays is wild. I'm talking about every single morning. I have a 3 hour morning routine that really prepares me for the day. But that's it. It's definitely self care. So folks who are listening, if that's not something you've ever really considered, you deserve it. So definitely make sure that you plan out what self care can look like for you. And Danny, thank you again for joining me today. Look, I know that you've had a very, very award-winning type of career in sales, freight sales. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you get into logistics?
Yeah, totally. So, I think I started out really not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, like many a 22-year-olds. And I was going to DePaul, and I had a focus or a concentration in sales leadership. So, that program had C.H. Robinson as a partner that came in, and they did seminars and things of that nature. So I just ended up applying because I wasn't really sure what path I wanted to go down. Had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. And then, in the fall of 2011, started in a training class. It was me and 15 guys. And, that was a really interesting process, being, in a sea of men, and realizing it's a really male dominated industry. But over time, I really started to excel when we started to learn, about the industry and started to sell freight. And I liked that, sometimes I beat out my guys in my class, and they were all friends, and it was a lot of like good competitive fun. And over time, when I finally, started getting on the floor and doing my own thing, I was starting to go after these house accounts, which were internal accounts, bigger carriers, usually national carriers that everyone had access to, but they were kind of underutilized. And I ended up, some of my first carriers in my career as, a 22, 23-year-old girl were Celadon and Milan Express, which is now Ascend. And people started to notice, like, who is this girl, and how is she coming in and like booking these national carriers? And by the time I had built relationships, with these group of people, other people started to kind of, drive after them and see if they could, book freight with them, and if they could kind of excel their career in the same way that I was doing with mine. And those carriers that I'd built that foundation with wouldn't work with those other people. And so I think I realized, initially really early on, the importance of like relationships, and how much of a priority that was to focus on. And it really just allowed me to have an extremely like lucrative and successful career, with a lot of awesome contacts over the years.
You broke down a lot right there, and I want to come back to this later. The fact that you said that it was you and 15
Yeah.
fellas in
Oh
that
yeah.
that training class, because I personally have learned so much game in logistics and transportation from women, and I personally feel like women just they kind of have an edge, especially in
Yeah.
this freight game. Definitely have an edge. So I want to come back and talk to that point a little bit more in a little bit. To your point of building those relationships with those mega carriers, the Celadons. I think they're out of business now,
They
but
are. They are, sadly.
yeah, but they were a huge deal,
Yeah.
a decade ago. Now, do you feel like anything in your schooling and your teaching, the fact that you had a background in communications and marketing, gave you some confidence to go after those folks? Or do you feel like you kind of naively stumbled into it and you found a lane that worked for you and you just repeated that success?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that in college, especially with my concentration and my minor, I learned a lot about what sales really is. And I think when a lot of people think about sales, they think about, a tidied up guy, and a blazer or a suit that's just talking your ear off and trying to talk you into something until you just are beaten down to the point that you give in. And it's entirely not true. It really just is about finding commonality with someone that needs something and figuring out how you can help them. And then ultimately build a mutually beneficial relationship. So, through my schooling, I learned a little bit of that, and how you can focus on that to be successful on a sales path. And I think a lot of it was just like, fake it till you make it. Like, you come in, you're brand new, you don't really know what you're doing, but you kind of put your head down, and you do the work, and you grind out in the calls, and you just go after it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And you have to be okay with the times that it doesn't. And really, you just need to know how to talk to somebody, and listen to somebody and hear what they're really trying to tell you so that you can find a solution. So again, I think it's a little bit of both. It's really, embodying what true sales is, and then just finding like a foundation with them and commonality and hearing them out, and being willing to do that.
Right, right. That human connection so that you can connect as a human, because I feel like once you do that, it opens up the doors to what can be. Before then, everybody has their guards up, their armor. It's like, how do you get them to take that down? So the human connection piece, huh?
100%. And I've been on the phone so many times with somebody that does not want to talk to me. And I think that's okay, and that's pretty common, especially in this industry. But I think even, just tonality and excitement, and that follow up. There's been a few times where I've talked to dispatchers, and I make light of the fact that I can tell that they're annoyed to hear from me. But, it's like, me again. I still care. I'm still here. You're going to remember my name eventually, and you might
Hmm.
need me if you can hear me out. So it was just kind of making light of that to the point where you can almost kind of break that, like, that tension or something on the other end of the phone. And then just really, like, again, hearing them out, like, what do they need? How can I help you bridge that gap and get you there? And how can I provide a better service than my competitors so that I can enhance your experience with, this human element? Which is something that technology can never, in my opinion, totally do. And that's why I think we kind of use it in conjunction in this industry.
I saw on LinkedIn that, in your heyday, 10,000 shipments annually. That's
Yes.
like 30 shipments a day, using very simple math. What were the challenges with that?
Yeah, I mean, initially it was not having technology. I'm not going to lie. When I started my career, booking 20 or 30 loads a day was really impressive. And by the time I ended my tenure as just a carrier sales rep, there were a lot of days where I was booking 80 to 100 loads a day, and that was very common. Technology helped with that, automation helped with that, and that was fantastic. But in terms of some of the things that were difficult about that, I think it really just came down to time. You're only one person, and you only have X amount of reach, and it's awesome to have support, which a lot of brokerages and management should provide to you. But it's just really your reach. Like, we have to provide excellent service in order to build those relationships, build that trust, build that credibility, so that we can do repeat business over and over again. And sometimes it's hard when you're booking that many loads a day.
Right. And at what point, at what volume level did the team realize that you needed some support, like the folks that report up to you to actually handle some of the back and forths that come along with moving freight?
Yeah, I think over time it was just like comparison of the numbers that I had, or some of the top performers had, to the rest of the sales floor, and recognizing your bandwidth is limited without that. So having an operations rep, having assistants that can help you book freight, probably around that like 30 to 40 mark. Per day was really where that becomes evident that you just need support and assistance. And over time, especially with larger brokerages, larger companies, sometimes, that reach only goes so far, because then they try to, assign, one person to multiple people. And so it was hard to really like accomplish some of the things that I wanted to accomplish, back then. But being an edge, and kind of being in an environment that's a little bit more collaborative and supportive, it's exciting to be able to give that to people who are growing right now.
Right, right. And you do mention Edge Logistics. Actually, I've had the pleasure of working with you guys
Oh,
for a while
great.
now, but definitely more recently, you guys got at least one brother that I've booked, I don't know, maybe 20, 30,
That's
something like
awesome.
that.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so I appreciate that guy for sure. He definitely cares about the carriers, and making sure that you guys customer get everything that they need. So shout out to Brett. I really like that fella.
Oh man, I love to hear that. That warms my heart, and I'll give him a shout out after this too.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. As far as so that for this freight brokerage that has the brand recognition as a top 100 brokerage, and the agility of a mom and pop shop.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think before the differentiation between the top and the bottom was just so vast. You don't really at a brokerage that size, you don't typically get a say. You don't make decisions, even though I was a person that was really in the grind and the thick of it daily. And at Edge, I get the ability to sit in a room, with all the people grinding in the ring, doing the day to day, doing the operational work, connecting our freight with carriers that are ultimately helping stock shelves or put food on someone's table, and with the executives that are making high level decisions, they're forecasting, determining strategies. And I get to do that every single day. So I have the ability to be in the know on every level of the business. And I embrace listening and connecting and collaborating with all those people so we can ultimately make the right decisions for the betterment of the company and the betterment of our people. And hopefully increase that ranking on that top 100 list year over year. But hopefully with happy and fulfilled employees that know that they're valued and they're a part of something special. So, it's been a tremendous shift, and Edge is an awesome place to be. So I couldn't be more excited to be part of the team.
Oh, that is amazing to hear. And you guys are definitely climbing those ranks, by leaps and bounds. So definitely congratulations
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, this discussion is about the human touch, the human element. AI is taking over. As far as the freight world, the freight industry,
Mm-hmm.
AI has been making huge splashes, and with tools such as Chat GPT, the use cases are truly unlimited. From your role, your perspective, tell me what you have noticed when it comes to navigating this new AI heavy freight industry.
From my seat, I think again, it's extremely beneficial. We should always use, technology and in conjunction or in unison with, the human element, that relationship that we've developed, and we can accomplish things that we've never been able to accomplish before. But I recognize that, especially, in terms of the carrier aspect of things, that, carriers and people still crave the human element a little bit, which, I think is surprising for some people to hear because, again, it helps us do our job more efficiently so we can, accomplish more tasks, get more done, book more freight, have access to dedicated and contract opportunities. I mean, it's vast in terms of, what that allows us to do on a daily basis. But, it starts with human connection. It starts with a relationship. It starts kind of with trust. And then you build on that with technology to allow people to get done what they need to get done in a more efficient and timely manner. So, I truly believe that that's something that might be a little bit surprising, but that I've noticed that carriers really want.
Right, right, right. And definitely, I hear you there. How do you feel like Edge Logistics is focusing on the human element so much so that it enhances the experience of its carrier partners and its customers? Like, how would you say you guys are focusing on that human element?
I mean, it comes down to relationships, right? With relationships, there's nothing sticky. There's not really a foundation. There's no potential for a long-term partnership, or at least, a really great potential for a long-term partnership. And that starts with the human experience always. Again, it's something that I don't think technology can ever fully replace. And kind of, going back to what we were talking about before, like finding out what people need, finding out how to bridge gaps, creating a mutually beneficial relationship by building trust and credibility so that even when things go wrong, which we both know they always do in this industry, there's no way around it, that partnership isn't severed. So, we really focus on relationships on all aspects of the business, whether it's customer facing or carrier facing, especially, as the SVP of carrier sales, we really focus on, how can I help them? What are the questions that I can ask to understand, their fleet and their network, their needs? How can I fill that void? And how can I, provide an experience that nobody else does so that they keep coming back, so that we have access to, the premium capacity, so we can fill voids within our board. We can find dedicated matches with our contract freight. We can fill voids in the spot market, which is access to capacity through those relationships.
Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. I feel like I have similar goals and influences as a independent dispatch agency owner. Just trying to see how can I meet the needs in whatever capacity that can be. How can I be the best at communicating? How can I bridge the gap between a dependable carrier and possibly that contract freight to make sure that everybody knows they have some capacity, they have some opportunities down the pipeline that they don't have to hunt every single day.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah, so no, I love that answer. Since you have such a distinguished career, you've seen a lot of people, especially at your time at C.H. Robinson, which is the largest freight broker, ever in existence. How do you feel like Edge Logistics is empowering its team members to grow in their career as logistics professionals?
I think initially it comes down to education first and foremost. We bring on experienced people, we also bring on green people. So education, knowing the market, understanding the terminology, just the ebbs and flows, seasonality, shifts, everything that we really need to know, giving that to them, and giving them those tools so that they can kind of like build that knowledge base. So it starts there, and then from there, I think it's continued support and continued training. The freight market is always forever changing. So I think it's important, that we also provide that, so that carrier reps are aware on a daily basis, how they can better sell, so that they can have a flourishing book of business. And then I think lastly, having a collaborative and supportive work environment is really, really important. And I think when employees feel that, they want to grow in their career, they want to grow, professionally, because they do have that support, and they know that they're heard, and they know, that management, the executive team has all the intentions to make sure that, every experience is positive, whether it's internal, external, or at least as positive as we can make it, right?
Just a question to kind of like delve into that supportive piece. Let's just say there's a broker within your organization. They've been doing flatbed steel loads, steel coils, and things of that nature for years and years and years. But
Mm-hmm.
they want to pivot. They want to be able to do something a little bit different. Maybe something as wild as pharma. They want to move pharma, but they have no background. When you're talking about support, do you feel like it's to the extent that you would supply that broker, that person, the tools, the knowledge, put them in the place to learn about pharma? Is it as specific as that?
I mean, I think, I've ran into countless employees that want to excel and transition within their career. So I think that we should never be limiting. Um, One, it really comes down to, what does our board have? What does our network look like internally? So learning about, learning the proper channels, and giving them the knowledge that they will actually use on a daily basis is going to be really important. So yeah, in that aspect, I'm never going to tell them no. We should always, be embracing people that want to adapt and grow and excel. So that way, we can do that, internally as a business.
Right, right, right. I hear you there. And, again, AI is taking over. AI is doing
Yeah.
so much. It's simplifying so many different tasks that used to take forever. What are some of the tools, the AI tools currently on the market that help Edge Logistics deliver exceptional service to its customers and its carrier partners?
Yeah, we use a few really heavily that come to mind. AVRL is one of them. So they're really a company that helps other companies automate their processes. We use it, for automated bidding, internal updates. So it really limits the amount of clicks, the amount of touches that we need to have, so that we have more access to more things, and again can get more done in a timely manner. Compared to just the human element being able to do that because we're so limited. We also utilize Highway, as kind of our compliance system, and kind of a vetting or evaluation system for carriers, and they're pulling in data from so many sources, Freight Guard reports and the FMCSA, and all of these things that we might have individual access to, but it would take a lot of time to be able to do that to vet a carrier. And lastly, our freight matching platform Capacity, which we utilize to sell to our relationship carriers so that they can book freight easier, with the support of kind of that rep behind it.
Gotcha, gotcha. And look, big shout out to the folks over there at Highway. Um,
Yeah.
I truly like their team. I had the pleasure of interviewing Reed Clements recently, so I was able to highlight that brother. But he and I have a pretty great relationship that goes back to when he was with Waive. So definitely shout out to them. And how has that partnership with Highway impacted your onboarding process?
I mean, it's just made it so much more seamless. Again, they're pulling in so many data points, and so in the amount of time it takes me to type in an MC, I get access to a carrier's equipment and fleet size, that kind of information on their authority, their insurance, safety ratings, inspection reports, crash history, and especially reportings of like double brokerages nearby. Like I said, we definitely use it as a form of compliance, and fraud and double brokers are so prevalent nowadays. So we definitely need to utilize Highway to be able to vet that, so we can avoid that risk as much as possible.
Right, right, right. And do you feel like the caliber of the carries that you guys are onboarding, has it ticked up a few notches, being as how you do have such a robust onboarding a vetting system?
Absolutely, and it's made it much easier to catch. I don't think there's ever going to be a way where we can, fully get around, that type of fraud. They're pretty smart, and they know how to work the system. So it's just helping us catch it more readily, and to a higher level for sure.
Right. I mean, you're moving hella shipments every single day. Do you feel like there are even still those knucklehead carriers in there that are, in the market, or do you feel like they've been pushed out due to, these paper thin margins?
Yeah, I mean, margin compression is definitely a real thing now, and it has been for quite some time, so it's tough out there. I think that knucklehead carriers will always be around and here to stay in some form or another. They definitely play, that game of kind of the spot market, and, short lead times, or unideal transit times, and they utilize that so that, they can hopefully get higher rates, and typically sometimes don't even provide the service to back it up. So we're always going to run into that. We still see it every single day. I don't think that's ever going to change. They know how to play the game, and that's okay. But again, they're not utilizing the relationship aspect, and I think that kind of puts them at a detriment. They really can't, pre-book at a high rate, or utilize that to their advantage, over the long term. It's really like a day by day play.
You mentioned that, yeah, they are smart. These folks are
Yes.
getting smarter and smarter to stay one step ahead. But at this point, folks are just stealing the whole shipment, like even changing the place where it's supposed to deliver with the intention on stripping the trailer, with all of the freight. So it's crazy that that stuff is still happening. Cybersecurity's been a huge thing within the freight industry. So it's a lot of still a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get to that later. But yeah, it's still a lot of stuff to consider when you're moving so much freight. And you're right. There are always going to be those folks who are looking for a come up, because that's essentially what it is, looking for a come up in the wrong way. But
Yeah, absolutely.
you mentioned one of these automating tools like automated bidding, and the fact that you can get some bids back. Like, what type of parameters do you set in that bad boy? Like, you have to kind of build into the system. It pulls in the amount of miles, the different elements, maybe, if it's high value cargo, and kind of adjust for all that when you're doing those automated bids.
Yeah, so in regards to AVRL, it's kind of like this rule-based automated bidding system. And again, they have other tools or other systems that they use to just really automate our systems internally. But it takes into consideration lead times, pickup times, historical data on the load, if we've moved that shipment previously, and for what rate, the time of day that we're bidding on this freight, and then when we're actually getting access to it. So if it's 5 p.m. and they're bidding on a load that picks up at 7 p.m. the day of, we're probably going to bid higher. That technology is really advanced, and we're really excited to be partnered with them. I wish I could speak on the depth of the technology more than I already am, but that's why we leave it up to those professionals. So yeah, it's really cool, and again, it allows us just more access to bid on more freight. So hopefully, we can have more on the board.
With that being said, how would you feel about AI driving the negotiation process with carriers? Because that capability, that functionality is here.
Yeah, it exists, and I think there's a lot of brokerages that really want to fully automate. They want that to be their process, because ultimately it's going to save them a lot of money. So I totally get the idea behind that, and why people want to utilize that. And again, my belief is that using technology like AVRL or anything of the like, and the human element and those relationships will really just push that book of business further than it can with just one or the other. So I think that in unison, using those things simultaneously, is where we can excel past a point that some other brokerages can't.
Right, right. And how are negotiations these days when you're going after new business? Like you mentioned it earlier, it's a slow market. The margins are compressed. Like, what does that negotiation process even sound like compared to maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
It's difficult, margin compression again is prevalent, and there's not a lot of money, so the environment is extremely competitive right now. It's harder to win freight, so it really comes down to how do we set ourselves apart, and it's utilizing the best carriers and providing the best service so that we get another chance, so we can get more of that freight. But yeah, in terms of the negotiations, I mean, our customer sales team is really out there grinding to bring in new business, and we're working extremely hard to ensure that we're servicing our existing business. And the freight market will always shift. Right now it's down, but we'll definitely get there to a place where that continues to come in at a rapid pace.
And have you noticed any markets that maybe haven't been adversely impacted by this post-pandemic reality that we're living in right now?
I think it has definitely impacted all sides of the business. It's kind of been crazy post COVID and just what that's looked like. Initially it was, just volumes just plummeted, but the rates were high, and they supported that, and were kind of flourishing. And then all of a sudden this intense influx, into the market and increased spending and just so much availability, and it was really, in the carrier's favor, and then that kind of shifted. But I recognize that we're a very heavy food and beverage brokerage, and that's never going to go away. So I think, in my thought is, if there's anything that hasn't been affected as much, it would probably be that industry. People are still consuming, people still need to drink and eat, and so we still need to put that on shelves.
I think that's actually great advice for those folks who are, maybe considering starting their own freight brokerage and wondering where they should put their emphasis, where should they put their attention. The things that are going to happen no matter what. People are going to eat, people are going to drink. So, not a great point right there. And as far as the negotiation process, thinking about the carrier, okay? It's a slow market. Thinking about the carrier, we know that again the margins are paper thin. So, what are
Mm-hmm.
some of the tips as to how a carrier can gain maybe a stronger position when negotiating in this market? Not when they're talking to you guys, but if they're dealing with another freight brokers. What are some of those tips that you might be able to offer? I know this is kind of like off the top of the head.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think one, avoiding the transactional, buy or sell is going to be favorable to anyone, whether you're a carrier or a sales rep. Finding kind of that contact or that person that's your go-to and you can trust, and then if you have any leverage and why you're utilizing that leverage. But if you are in that transactional sale, I think carriers really just need to focus on the legitimacy of the load. What are the transit times? What is the opportunity to make some money there? Am I stuck in Florida, and what time of the year is it? And just using that as an honest conversation with someone on the other side of the phone. But again, I think, doing that in a sense without a relationship is kind of, there's a lack of the desire to help, right? Someone on the other side of the phone. If I'm friends with you and you're asking me for something, or you need something, and we've helped each other in the past, I probably am wanting to help you again in the future because we're creating a mutually beneficial relationship. But if you're a random Joe Schmo that's calling me, I'm probably not as inclined. So again, I think that's kind of why carriers should also focus on that kind of relationship piece, instead of anyone being a dat rat, or anyone just making those calls on a daily basis, whether you're stripping out a load on the sales side, or you're calling on posted loads on the carrier side.
A dat rat.
We love a good dat rat.
That is hilarious. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I love it. I definitely agree with the advice. I have brokers that I have moved thousands of loads with. And when even I didn't benefit as a dispatch service and I knew that I could do something that could help them, it was not a question. It was something that I was
Absolutely.
going to do. And I was going to, just be very, very grateful I was in a position to even do something. So,
Yeah, and I think that, sometimes, or over time, when that relationship is developed and the person, you've built that credibility and that trust, a lot of times it doesn't come down to price. It comes down to, that trust, and knowing what experience that you're going to get, and that, means more tenfold a lot of the time. I've had so many people in the past that I've built that kind of foundation with, and then they say, "Oh, Danny, well, this brokerage, has this load posted for $50 more. Can you get that for me?" And I'm honest. I'm gonna try to, if I can, 100%. If I can't, I'm gonna let you know. You can go get that if you want to. I know that you need to make money too, and you need to put food on your table as well. So, and I respect that. And most of the time, they still book the load with me. So I think that's really, where that kind of relationship focus shines, is what is really important, in this entire process.
I love it. I love it. And look, not backtracking, but what happened to the produce season of 2023? I feel like it was like a blip. I didn't see anything. What was it like from where you were sitting?
We felt it. Rates were definitely inflated in the Southeast. They still are. I feel like since COVID, produce season has been a little bit weird. I feel like it's felt a little bit lighter and it's felt a little bit quicker. In terms of the Southeast, I think I'm seeing it more this year than I have in the few years past. But obviously, produce seasons around the nation, whether it's in California or other areas or the Pacific Northwest, it I think it also just depends on weather and the economy and everything else that's going on there. But yeah, we're seeing the inflated rates. It just seems to have been shorter than pre-COVID.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Okay, well, cool. You have a lot more data to check out than I do, and from my perspective, well, I guess I can say this though. I kind of shifted. I went from being someone that did a whole bunch of dispatching in the dry van, the vented vans, and all that kind of stuff, to really stopping cold turkey. I pivoted over to drayage, and
Really?
that's where I've been putting a lot of my personal attention, versus still following up with the dry van side of things. So okay, so I got you. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what do you think is going to be the telltale sign that the market has rebounded?
I think increasing tender rejections, ultimately then spot rates increasing a little bit because it's, those rates aren't, that significantly high. And then contract will always follow from there. I don't think we can go up until we find a bottom. I'm also not sure we can go down anymore. And I know that, if interest rates stay high and, these student loan programs don't go through, that's more disposable income out of the market, because of just decreased spending and ordering and shipping. But hopefully that's not the case. And hopefully, over time, and over some pushback, those tender rejections will lead to those price increases in the market.
Yeah, I hear you now. And look, things are different now, obviously, today than when you were in that position, top 25 slinging freight for CH
Yeah.
Robinson. But you definitely have the mentality. You understand what you needed to do to make sure that was happening. Does that mentality uh, kind of change in this market? For today's sales rep to become a top 25 producer? Like, is it the same that you had, or do they have to do different things? They have to do something more? How do you feel about that?
I think it's truly the same. It comes down to these foundational things. And, I'm kind of an old school girl, right? Where you embrace the grind like 10, 11, 12 years ago, it was different. You're exactly right. And, our CEO, our founder, he was an Echo guy. Our president, worked for AFN and Arrive. And everybody's kind of this old school person that embraces that mentality, and it really comes down to just some of the basics, right? It's like efficiency and organization, the ability to multitask, embracing the grind, finding fun in it, and knowing how to talk to people. Communication is so important. And starting out, being intentional with your conversations, even going to, your tone, and making sure you're following up like that. That's so important that a lot of people forget to do. And then, really the kind of some of the bigger things, like just knowing how to talk to someone, focus on building that relationship, getting to know the other person on the end of the phone, realizing that there is a person on the other end of the phone so that we avoid that transactional sale and that transactional business. And then again, like it comes down to doing that. So you build credibility and trust. You provide a top tier service. You don't find reasons to complain. In the meantime, this is an industry with a ton of opportunities. So you control what you can, you communicate what you can't, and you move on. It's very fast paced. And then, finding dedicated opportunities with contract freight and filling, that transactional match with our spot freight by, building on those relationships, getting access to more and more capacity, and also just utilizing our technology to make that go more seamlessly. So, again, I think the only thing that's changed really over time is this technology piece. It makes us do our job better or operate, more efficiently. But again, I think it really is always going to be these like core foundational focuses on efficiency and communication and relationships.
Right, right. And what I love most about folks who have been in the industry, who are seasoned professionals, is you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of different seasons. You've seen cycles, the up cycles, the down cycles, and you kind of, you have a testimony. You learn how to talk to people who have experienced certain things, and you really can empathize. How do you feel like you would? I don't know if you're having these conversations at your level, but when it comes to thinking about the quote unquote trucking bloodbath of 2019 and how carriers are being pushed out of the market today, what's that? How do you empathize? How do you teach your carrier reps who are in the day to day grind of things to empathize with the folks who are experiencing that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, like that human element, something that we haven't really touched on is trying to help. I set my business up in that way where I became friends with the people that I worked with, and we didn't always just talk about shop. We talked about other things, and I wanted them to know, like, hey, if you're going to this state at this time of year, it's going to be really hard for you to come back out. Maybe you should take this instead. And it wasn't, I didn't kind of like have any foul intentions with that. It was truly like, I want to run your truck. I want you to come to me. I want to help you, and communicating that and helping them where you can with rates or, finding opportunities that you can lock in long term. I think that's really important as a carrier sales rep. And I know there's plenty out there. There's plenty of brokerages or reps that are focusing on just like, how can I make as much money as possible and screw over as many people as I possibly can. But I don't think that lasts long term, because when markets flip out of our favor, we're shit out of luck. Excuse my French. So I think again, like that piece is so important, like helping the other person on the other end of the phone.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you 100%. And the crazy thing about this market is, I just read an article, right? It's about Peace Equipment LLC. And unfortunately, they had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And for all signs say that they were doing good work and that they had a very good safety culture, very strong safety culture. As an independent dispatch agency owner, I look at these numbers like they had 40 drivers, and over the past 24 months, they had, I think, 99 driver inspections, with only 4% being put out of service, which is less than the industry standard. And thinking about their trucks, 37 truck inspections, and only 11% have been put out of service, which is half of what the national average of 22%. So doing things that they were supposed to do. And it's just like, I asked this question, it's kind of rhetorical, but what's the reward for a carrier doing adequate work during this market? Like, what is the reward if somebody, a carrier that scaled up and was operating like that, they had to file bankruptcy?
Yeah, I mean it's tough out there for sure, and I think a lot of it comes down to how these carriers treat these up and down markets, and how they save in an up market and then how they strategize in a down market. With that being said, in regards to Edge specifically, the reward for the carrier adequately doing their jobs is primary access to freight, and price over service. Service will always, be important, especially in a market like this. That kind of reigns king. So, I'll pick a carrier all day that's doing the right things. They're communicating. They're on top of it. They service our freight properly. And I'll pay them more money to get that service every single time, before I wait for a call in that might be, $100 less. So, here we're definitely, we're ensuring that those carriers are prioritized.
Right, right. Is that what it means to be a carrier first freight brokers? Because that's personally what I see as logistics as. Would you agree?
I mean, definitely. We know supply and demand dictate our industry. A lot of factors play into that, whether it's something going on in the economy, seasonalities, shifts, things like that. And we've seen time and time again over the years, like contracts get renegotiated, service goes out the window, relationships go out the window, depending, on those shifts. Um, but I think at Edge, we see the importance of not only the freight that we get from our customers, but the carriers that are hauling the freight. We can't do anything without them. We need them to do that. We need them to service, So that's why that carrier development, that retention, to us is really the key to growth. We cover our freight on time. We cover it with the right carriers that are providing service, and then we get more freight from our customers, and it creates this, really kind of like holistic cyclical cycle that's really healthy, and that's really how we navigate through.
Oh, awesome, 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 awesome. Yeah. And look, I saw on your LinkedIn profile, right, that during your time at CEH you were inducted into the Women's Development Group, honoring your strong business practices and your status as a top producer. When you think about it, this is what I wanted to return to when you spoke about you being the only woman within your training group. 15 other peers, all males. Like, what are some of the ways you like to see women collaborate, maybe even foster the building of meaningful relationships and create opportunities where women can benefit within this male dominated logistics industry?
Yeah, I think it's really important to celebrate the power of being a woman in the industry. You kind of touched on it before. There are struggles. Because I think people have exceptions. That sometimes they have to be let down by that just because you're a woman. But also there's a lot of competitive advantages. Like sometimes it's refreshing to be a woman that is intelligent and knows the market and knows how to service people. That can help. So I think, kind of collaborating in a group setting, with women at the company or in the industry, just to share successes, failures, opportunities that they've found, strategies that that have deemed successful to them to tackle the market, providing feedback to newer reps or tenured reps on how to excel, because the market, as we know, is forever changing. I think, that was something that I had access to before and is really important to continue to do. Nothing gets me more excited than a carrier sales rep that's a woman. Like literally nothing, because all I want to do is just like talk shop with them, help them set themselves apart, and just like watch them flourish. So, yeah, definitely, just being collaborative in that way and celebrating it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, actually, my next guest that I'm going to be interviewing, she is seeking folks, women in the transportation industry to kind of aid and help them. I don't know. She's seeking folks in witty. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
witty women in transportation industry, and
okay.
she's technically part of the Department of Transportation. So she's looking to be able to find women to pour into so that they can grow, learn, even when it comes to college age, school age, young ladies, to be able to benefit from some of the resources that are, part of the Department of Transportation. So I'd love to be able to connect y'all to see if there's any synergies that can come about from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll always embrace that. That sounds awesome.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I love that. All right. And look, you are again the senior vice president of carrier sales for Edge Logistics, which means that you are someone who can wrangle in a large group of people and also be the person to guide them on what they need to do in order to get the most impact out of what's going on. Do you feel like your time as an intramural referee prepared you for this type of gig?
I don't know if it was necessarily being a ref. I think it was more being in athletics and a competitive sporting environment. I always like to compete. My dad was really competitive. So having kind of that in your nature is positive, especially for this industry. And with that competition, you want to grow, you want to learn, you want to improve, you start to excel. You always want to be refining your craft, and then you transition, or I transitioned into a position where I can lead and I can teach and develop. And so I think that really just transpired over time. And again, a lot of it is that foundational, just like competitiveness. Like I want to be better, and then I want to kind of like share that with people. So I think that's helped me get where I am.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Look, I saw that and I had to shout it out because I too was an intramural referee.
Nice, I love
I
that.
I repped them all. I repped them all. That was definitely one of the highlights of my college experience, doing all of the different sports. So I would have been out there right with you. But you also played too. Is that something that you still keep up with?
I did play in high school. I played, in college, just like intramurally for the most part because I was working to get some money. But, I dabble when I can find the time. I definitely do it. And I would like to do it more, definitely, for sure.
I hear you. I was look, this is not a roll down the glory days, okay? But
No, go for it.
these are
I'm
facts,
into
okay?
it.
As a postgraduate of Georgia State University, I still had my membership to the rec center, which gave you the ability.
Oh,
You
I
know,
love that.
yeah, I had the ability to still play intramurals. So you're talking to a racquetball intramural champion.
Oh,
That's
let's
what we're talking
go.
about.
Okay, I'm impressed.
Oh, recognize. Okay, but that's well, look. Is there anything that maybe that you wanted to talk about when it came to edge logistics, or maybe even the industry that we didn't get a chance to touch on that would be something you want to talk about now?
I mean, just specifically with Edge again, I think, you know, the the importance of people and processes, and just really focusing on building relationships, building an elite environment, where everyone can excel in, and focusing on communication service. I love to be here. We welcome, all carriers out there that are looking for a great business to work with, and customers as well. I'm really excited to be a part of this company, and I've loved talking to you today, to share a little bit about it. So thank you.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I've definitely enjoyed speaking with you as well. It is apparent that you have a lot of knowledge in this industry, that you've seen the tides change and you understand where we are. So I'm happy that Edge Logistics has someone like you who is helping, usher in that new wave of carrier sales. So appreciate you. My last question is a little different. We're talking about AI and
Mm-hmm.
the human element. We also know about this being a very, very soft market. I've heard so many brokerages laying off folks, mass layoffs from at least
Mm-hmm.
12 household names. And do you feel like AI is just a bigger reason for these mass layoffs happening in freight brokerages? Just as equally important as the soft market.
I think it's both. I touched on it a little bit before, but there are brokerages that are really investing in technology so that that can really take over, and they want that to be their primary focus. In conjunction with a really soft market, and rates being so low, lower than they have been in a very long time, that I think I think they've shifted towards that AI piece even more than maybe they would have, or went on that track at a faster pace. So, you know, everybody has their stitch. We understand there's a ton of layoffs going on. We're still hiring, so we're excited about it.
Hey, no, I love it. I love it. Thank you for your candid response. And again, I appreciate you so much for joining me here.
Thank you, Jory.
Definitely, definitely. Everybody, I appreciate the support as always. Tune in on Monday morning, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, as we partner with Freightways Sonar Team. We're going to talk about the market, where you should position your trucks to take advantage of the market. And that conversation that I mentioned earlier is going to take place live on Monday with the young lady from the Department of Transportation. It's going to be part two of the government contracting series that we're doing here on the Transportation and Logistics Clubhouse. With the market being so slow, people getting pushed out, trying to give a different avenue for folks to flourish, especially with that bipartisan infrastructure law. The $1 trillion go get you some of that money. So yeah, so that is definitely happening on Monday evening. So tune in. And outside of that, I just pray everybody has a blessed one. Danny, thank you again.
Thank you so much for your time. I love chatting with you.
Anytime now. All right, peace.
Bye bye.